Scotland needs more faith schools. That's the view from the Sola Centre for Public Christianity, a Dundee-based think tank. The centre's director, the moderator of the Free Church of Scotland, the Rev David Robertson, is also calling for the Scottish Government to resist pressure from secular groups who want to remove religion from education. He joins us now alongside Gordon MacRae, who's the Chief Executive of the Humanist Society of Scotland. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Reverend Robertson, first of all, don't you think that faith schools are divisive?
No, not at all. I think what's divisive, actually, is the way that we divide our education system into schools for the rich and schools for the not so well off. I think faith schools are part of a diverse culture. And I find it interesting that progressive countries like the Netherlands, for example, even England is much better than us in this, not only allow this, but encourage this. And I just wonder why the one size-fits-all model is something that we still maintain. It doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Gordon, what do you think of that? More faith schools perhaps giving parents more choice?
Well, I think we believe, at the Humanist Society of Scotland, we believe segregation of children based on the religious choice of parents should be consigned to history. It's nearly 100 years since the law enshrined denominational schooling here in Scotland, and that was because it was a reaction to much of the sectarianism and problems that had arisen. But we think it's time now for a new vision for schooling, a time for education across all faiths and beliefs, where children, where religion has a role to play in education, but the religious observance should be replaced with a more inclusive time for reflection and encourage children to learn more about the world around them.
Reverend Robertson, do you not think it's the job of parents or even churches, if people choose to go to church, to provide that religious guidance rather than schools?
Well, yes, but schools all have an ethos. I mean, I do think that what Gordon says is a little bit disingenuous, because 100 years ago this non-denominational system was not set up because of sectarianism. It was set up as non-denominational Christian. You had the Catholic school system, and then you had basically the Protestant system. But here is my problem, and where I think the disingenuity is that Humanist Society wants schools set up which are based on their ethos and their principles. It is a one-size-fits-all, whereas I believe in the United Nations Charter of Human Rights, which says that as an absolute right, parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that should be given to their children. And the European Convention on Human Rights, Protocol 1, Article 2, states that the state shall respect the rights of parents to ensure such education and teaching in conformity with their own religious and philosophical convictions. And what's happening just now is we've moved from a Christian state education system to one that in many cases is fundamentally anti-Christian. As I came into the studio this morning, I received a text from somebody who didn't know I was actually going on this program, who said that their son had been forced basically to watch 3 DVDs in class with Richard Dawkins mocking the Christian faith. And I'm afraid that's increasingly the default position. So I don't accept that humanism is neutral. I think it's actually incredibly divisive, where a small minority of people are dictating their philosophy on all children in Scotland.
But there are concerns, aren't there, in faith schools over issues like how science is taught, and even the issue of sex education and how that might be given to children too.
Well, you're just illustrating my point, because in actual fact there are no concerns about how science is taught. There has been an attempt by the Scottish Secular Society to claim that creationism is coming in, which is ludicrous. But and as the sex education, why should we have the values, the sex education values of one particular group? Why can't we have diversity? Why can't we have greater freedom? And the point is as well, the current monolithic system is failing, and it's especially failing Scotland's poorer children. And I find that appalling.
Gordon MacRae, is it not the case that perhaps children should get more than one view, and perhaps by moving away from the teaching of religion and by faith schools, that is being excluded?
Absolutely. We want to see children have the broadest education about all beliefs and faiths that are here in Scotland and across the world. We're going for inclusion rather than the exclusion. I have to say, we actually agree with Bishop Devine, who said that denominational schooling can be divisive, but sometimes, in his view, that was a price worth paying. We don't think it's a price worth paying. We think Scotland is now facing a time where we have new challenges and we have to reflect the changing nature of society.
And where does moral education come from if religion is removed, Gordon MacRae?
Well, as humanists, we would argue that obviously moral good, being a good person, comes from the human instincts that we all have, and that in some people they channel that through a religious construct, and others we do that without the need for reference to God. But
so does being a bad person come from that? I mean, I'm sorry, that's a non-answer. That's a non-answer. I mean, it's just saying, oh, well, people are good. That's the Disney version of society. And I mean, I'm interested in the humanists. Do the humanist society support Catholic schools? Do the humanist society support parents' right to choose? Do the Humanist Society support the United Nations and the European Convention's principles on this, or not?
I think you're making a big leap from what the Scottish education law is just now to how you ensure that people are able to exercise reasonable choices around the religious education. It has to be said...
Do you support that, though? Do you support the right of parents to choose?
Quite happy for parents to choose in private.
No, in education. This is in public education. The United Nations is talking about. Do the Humanist Society
Our vision
support?
Is for inclusive education system, one that encompasses all education of all.
Which means you're excluding religion. In actual fact, what you've just said to me is that the Humanist Society do not support a basic human right recognised by the European Convention and the United Nations. I find that appalling.
I find it appalling that you're trying to twist my words rather than
do you support it or not?
But the issue, he's arguing the issue is one of choice for parents.
Do you support that choice?
In the state schools, we think it's time for all religions to be reflected in religious education.
Still not answering the question. Do you support the choice?
But that's not quite the same, Gordon MacRae, is it? If you're just to teach about different religions at school, it's not the same thing as a child attending a particular faith school.
In terms of the state education system, we believe in a non-denominational, non-faith schools. We want to see all schooling for all pupils encompass all faiths and beliefs.
Well, I see, I would want that too, but I would want it done from a Christian perspective and a Christian ethos. You want it done from a humanist ethos. The difference between you and me is this. I am quite happy for there to be humanist schools. I'm quite happy for there to be choice. But you, as the Humanist Society, quite astonishingly, are opposed to the basic human right that parents have the right to choose where their children should be educated. For me, that's appalling.
We'll have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed, both, for speaking to us this morning. We heard there from the Rev David Robertson and also from Gordon MacRae from the Humanist Society of Scotland.